Hey everyone, Theo here. In today's video, I'm going to show you some techniques that I use to draw windows with details as well as windows that are simplified. The objective for this tutorial is to find different ways to draw windows, so you can try different sequences, you can try mixed media, you can draw positive on negative, negative on positive, you can draw the windows in details, draw windows without details, just have fun and experiment. Let's look at the tools and supplies before we start. So I have some color pencils here. These are by Tombow. My Pelikan M200 fountain pen with sketch ink, which is waterproof when dry. A Sakura Jelly Roll white gel pen, watercolor sketchbook, a box of watercolor paint, opaque markers. These are Posca markers. This is for drawing thicker lines, and this is for drawing thinner lines, and this brand is Molotow. The reference photo I'm using are from Alice, who's a friend from Urban Sketches Singapore, and she has this SG Shop Front Challenge where she will draw the shop front of all shop houses in Singapore. So we'll be using some of these reference photos. Let's start with something simple such as this red windows here. So this should be quite straightforward. Let's draw a vertical rectangle. And we can draw the windows within. Divide this into two and draw three rectangles, three vertical rectangles, 1, 2, and 3, and here as well, and draw the horizontal lines. So this is quite straightforward because the windows are facing the front. There is no perspective. It's just a front-facing perspective. When I first drew this window, I made a mistake here. I did not separate the three rectangles, so this is just one vertical shape, whereas here I have three boxes. So one way to simplify this is to let me just show you how. We'll draw the frame again and divide this into two. You can actually simplify this window further, especially if you are drawing on a small piece of paper or a small sketchbook. So same thing, just draw the outer shape. And this time I will not be drawing the three boxes here. Instead, I will just be drawing the horizontal lines. Oops, the ink flow for this pen on this paper is not that great. So I'm drawing the horizontal lines and turning them into a shape. I need to leave some space between the two groups of horizontal lines. And I'm going to draw the vertical box beneath, but I'm not going to add another box within the box. If I need to draw this really small, I would just draw this shape, divide this into two, and draw the horizontal lines followed by this two rectangles. The coloring process should be quite straightforward. We just need to make the red parts red and the vertical rectangles yellow. And this is how the windows look after watercolor is added. Let's increase the difficulty. So now we are going to draw this window. We have blue frames over the white grills, which are over the black. And we have the blue frames here, the horizontal frames overlapping the white grills. And this part here is white. Let's try drawing the windows once and see how it looks. So two windows are closed, the other one is open. So if I draw the windows this way, I won't be able to make these lines blue. These lines will be black. So in this case, I may not want to draw the lines for the boxes, the rectangles. So let's draw this again in a different style. I'm still going to draw the outline, but I'm not going to draw the details within. I will still divide the windows into 1, 2, 3. Let's paint this. So make sure you don't paint over the white area. So for this window, I'm going to paint the frame with watercolor instead of drawing the frame. So we have a thin line here, a thicker line here, and we have the frame at the bottom, and it should look like this. Now that this is dry, we can paint the black part. So because I drew the horizontal line with black earlier, I'm going to try and have this blue line there. So it's actually not necessary to draw the black line earlier. And once this is dry, after this is dry, we will draw the vertical white lines with the white gel pen. If you look very closely at the reference photo, you can actually see the underside of the frame. So for that, I am going to paint a very thin line here. The light is coming from the top right, so the underside of the frame will be here. This is something I will not paint when I'm sketching outdoors, because when I'm sketching outdoors, I probably won't be drawing this in great detail. There is actually another way to draw this window without having to paint the underside of the frames. And I just realized that while painting this. So same thing, we are going to draw this window. So instead of drawing the rectangular shape, the whole rectangle, we will just draw the top and the side here. And when you paint this with watercolor, the underside of the frame is already added, because you drew that with ink. So after this is dry, we can use the white gel pen to add the vertical lines. I have to go a bit slower so that the ink can come out. Make sure the vertical lines align from top down. So one issue with this sketch, which is not crucial, is there is this line here and here. Whereas if you look at this, where I did not draw the box, the blue actually connects very nicely. So here, same thing, I'm just going to draw the lines with white gel pen. This part here is not dry yet. So in this case, these two drawings actually don't look very different, so you can just use whichever you prefer or whichever is easier. So for the grills at the top, I have painted a rectangular shape, and I'm going to draw the black lines with black ink. You can also use watercolor to draw those horizontal black lines. Next, we will draw this window. For this drawing, we will ignore the plant in front and we will ignore the shadow. So the sequence of drawing this is actually important. For this, I will draw the outline first. Next, I will paint the posters or this grill or curtain here and this table here. Next, I will paint black over the black areas. And next, I will use the white gel pen to draw the lines above the black. and also use the white gel pen to draw this lights. If you draw something like this very often, the sequence of drawing and painting will come to you subconsciously, so you don't have to like think that much. So let's draw the horizontal windows at the top first. This will be painted with black later on. Actually, you may not even need to draw this with ink, because when you paint this with black later on, the lines will not be obvious. So if they are not obvious, you don't even need to draw them in the first place. Let's draw the bottom part here. So this is the boundary, the outline. There are 5 sections. So I'm going to draw this bottom part here. If you want to draw the plant in front, you have to draw that first before you draw the window behind. It's just easier that way. So now I want to paint the, what's this, the table here. This is the table at this cafe, and next I can paint the yellow posters. There's one here. I may have used too much water, so that means I will have to wait for the paint to dry, wait a bit longer for the paint to dry before I paint the black. And lastly, we can paint the light blue for the front here, for the bottom here. And also the light blue here. The left edge of the light blue will match the left edge of the poster. And the right edge of the light blue will not match the right edge of this poster. While we wait for the bottom part to dry, let's paint the window at the top. This color doesn't have to be black, as in completely black. You just have to use a dark color, a darker color. And this does not look dark enough for me, so I will have to add more paint. Just make sure that this color that you are using here matches the color that you're going to paint later on. Otherwise the color harmony is not going to look good. So notice I have this little blob here. So let's try and get a straighter line. So notice the ink line that I drew earlier, it's gone. The bottom is now dry, so let's paint the black. Again, this is not as dark as I expected, so let me just add more paint. Make sure the first layer is completely dry, otherwise the black is going to blend into the first layer of colors. Oops. Not a problem here. Let's just draw this. Let's just make sure that this is straight. This is not really a problem. It will be a problem if the paint is wet. But in this case, it's not a problem because we can still get a straight edge here, which is very important for this sketch. What you want to do basically is to make sure that the shapes are recognizable. And lastly, let's paint this part here. Oops, some of the paint went up. Now that this is dry, I'm going to use my paint marker to draw the vertical lines. I'm using this instead of the white gel pen because this can draw thicker lines. So let's draw here from the top first. And down, make sure there's a gap between this line and the yellow poster. Okay. And here is the second line. Make sure the lines go down. Make sure the lines are aligned properly. So as I draw the white line over the blue, you can see that it's not very clear. So I probably don't need to go over the blue. This is the third line. I'll draw a bit slower to make sure the ink will come out properly, and this is the last line. I'm going to use black ink to draw vertical lines here to give you the idea that this white line actually goes down all the way to the bottom. And now I can use this to add some lights in the shop. There's one here and one here. I can even use this to draw the windows that are at the back of the shop. Maybe some details here and maybe here. If the white is not opaque enough, you may have to go over the white one more time. But you have to draw directly on top, otherwise it's not going to look right. It looks like you may have made a mistake. So these are some of the techniques that I use to draw windows. The techniques that I use will vary depending on how complex or how detailed the windows need to be. If I'm drawing windows by the side of a skyscraper, I will not draw all the individual windows, of course. So let's say I have a very tall building here. Maybe this is an office block. So in this case, I may just draw the windows, represent the windows with horizontal lines. The trick to getting the perspective right, accurate, is make sure you draw the top, make sure you get the perspective for the top and bottom line accurate first, then draw the line between these two lines, and draw the lines between these two lines, and just keep adding, and this will help you draw the angled lines more accurately. Sometimes I like to use dots to represent windows. If you cannot count the number of windows, you don't have to draw all the windows. And when you're drawing dots like this by the side of a tall building, it's good to have the dots aligned properly according to perspective. If I have to draw this building in close up, I will draw like this. So this is the top of the building. Let's have some perspective. For the windows, I will not be drawing them individually. For the windows, I will be painting them. So I can, let's just paint to the edge of the building. So this is one row of windows on the side of this building, and when the windows reach the edge here, make sure you paint the windows by the side in perspective. Let's have another row of windows here. After this is dry, I can use white gel pen to draw the individual windows. Now, if this building is quite far away, you don't really need to use the white gel pen to draw individual windows. For example, if I have used watercolor to paint the lines here, then I don't need to use white gel pen to add more details. But for this building, this is actually drawn quite big, so I do need to add more details, otherwise it's going to look unfinished. I actually got the idea for today's tutorial from this book, The World of Urban Sketching by Stephanie Bauer. So this book is going to be out soon. I have an advanced copy because the publisher sent me this. This book is actually already out here in Singapore because it's printed here in Singapore, and you can get this from Basha Bookstore. If you are elsewhere, you can pre-order it online. So when it comes to drawing windows, wow, there are so many examples of how windows can be drawn in this book. Let me just show you this sketch from Ben. Ben Look is a friend from Urban Sketches Hong Kong, and this is how he draws windows. So sometimes he draws the windows, sometimes he simplifies them, and sometimes he will just leave them out. You can also draw what you see through windows. I will be reviewing this book in a separate video. Meanwhile, if you want to get this, you can get it through the pre-order links that I have for you in the video description below. Alright, I hope this tutorial is useful. Thanks for watching. See you guys again. Bye!